So here is the power of control. These are the people that run the world. These are the puppets of the real people. I believe the real controllers of this world are beyond the shoreline of Antarctica. There's a lot of evidence of that. Council of Foreign Relations, United Nations, the Bilderberg Group, Club of Rome, Royal Institute of International Affairs, and the Trilateral Commission. These are the people unelected that are running our world. They run everything, right? And so Rockefeller himself said, I don't want a world of thinkers. I want a world of workers.
What if the truth came in a gel cap and we could just pop it in our mouths and forget about it? Well, it doesn't. And we can't. But we can laugh in the face of reality while plotting our survival. Welcome to the Truth Tastes Funny podcast. I am your host, Hersh. And if my guests can handle the truth, so can you. Open wide, folks. Here it comes.
I'm going to answer why the lie. So if you look at plane routes, right? Plane flights. So here is New Zealand. So Australia is around the corner here. Here's Argentina. Here's the tip of South America. So if you wanted to fly from New Zealand to Argentina, FlightAware says this is the fastest route. This is the Great Circle route right here. I don't know why you wouldn't just go here, but big deal. No big difference. And there's islands out here with airports that you can land on if there's an emergency. Okay. So this is the shortest route. Before I show you this, if this is the world, we got the north on the top, the south on the bottom, the equator around the middle. Okay. Ignore the green screen here. Any two airports anywhere in the north, would you ever need to go below the equator to get from one northern airport to another northern airport? Would you ever need to go below the equator?
No.
No, and you're right. And no plane ever does. Hear that out. No matter where an airport is, if they're both in the north, the plane never goes below. The same would be true for the south. It would never have to go into the north. However, the long-distance southern flights do a very funny thing. This is the route. New Zealand, across the equator, San Francisco, Texas, and Argentina. Why? What's the shortest distance between 2 points?
Straight line.
New Zealand, San Francisco, Houston, Texas, Argentina.
Right.
Isn't that interesting? Remember the World Cup? The World Cup. Now people say, well, they have hubs there. They need to drop other passengers off. That's coping. That's called coping for your global religion. But the winners of the World Cup, Buenos Aires, had their own plane, their own pilot, and they wanted to go home after the World Cup. Doha, they went to Rome to get fuel and then to Buenos Aires. Wait a minute. Why didn't they just go straight or just get some fuel over here? Doha, Rome, ocean, Buenos Aires.
Yeah.
I'm going to show you something else too, because these people say, well, they wanted to go visit the Pope, this and that. Well, here is some emergency landing. Sometimes, something happens on a plane and they got to land a plane. Someone's having a baby, right? So this is a flight from New York to Hawaii. And there was an emergency right here. So they went 1,000 miles out of the way and landed in Seattle. And they got there in 15 minutes. Do the math. New York, Seattle, Hawaii on a flat earth map. Let's look at another one. Pakistan to London. They went to Moscow. Doesn't seem that far out of the way, but it was. It's over 1,000 miles. They got there in no time flat. Moscow's right on the line. Again, Moscow, right on the line from Doha to Chicago. Right?
Right.
Beijing to Dallas, Calgary's right on the line. It was 1,500 miles out of the way. They went there. Why did they do that? Right? Here's one going from New York to Fiji.
Okay.
New York to Fiji, right? They're going here, emergency. Oh, no, they're going to Auckland, New Zealand. Emergency landing in Fiji. Wait a minute. Fiji's kind of way over here. What happened? If you look at it on a flat earth map, Fiji's right in line. Here's a zoom in of it. New York, Fiji, New Zealand. Why is it? It's always weird that it matches up on a flat earth map. And one more. This is my favorite one. Hong Kong, it was going to England. It stopped in Germany 12 hours later because 4 hours into the flight, a family traveling together, mom died suddenly. Weird, right? We don't have to talk about that. But she's with her children and her husband. Plane's full. She's dead in her seat. They didn't land for 8 more hours. Could you imagine these kids sitting next to their dead mother for 8 hours? Why didn't they land? Right? Why didn't they land? And the
But
answer is
where is all that like documented though?
this is all documented. This is documented. They said this is the flight route,
We
and
have to
4 hours.
get to the because we don't have the time to, let's say, fact check and
I'm
explore
gonna
all
I'm
that.
gonna tell you where
We
you can
need to
find all
get
the
into
facts.
the that's okay. We need to
Yeah.
get into the logic
All right.
of
Why lie? Yeah. But let me
why.
just show you this. Let me
Because
show you
I
that.
because I because I
I got it.
know that
I'm
there are
gonna
going
give
to
you the
be
logic.
yeah, go ahead.
I'm gonna give you the logic. The reason they didn't go is because they were over Russia. And if they landed in Russia, Russia probably would have been very helpful. That could spark world peace. Can't have that. And also, people like me would go, "You're over Russia because the Earth is flat." So they couldn't admit they were over Russia.
Okay. But
Hundreds of these.
but that's
Hundreds of
not the why of the conspiracy. In
right.
other
It's not
words, that's not the why of the because I'm like I said in the beginning of the conversation, I'm ready to say, okay, I'm tired of, the bullshit and
yeah,
the billionaires and all this other stuff,
right.
but even believing that the earth is round, I have no trouble believing that,
So, all right, I'm going to explain
that
it right now. Give me 2 minutes, and I'll do the whole thing.
okay.
Right. So here is the power of control. These are the people that run the world. These are the puppets of the real people. I believe the real controllers of this world are beyond the shoreline of Antarctica. There's a lot of evidence of that. Council of Foreign Relations, United Nations, the Bilderberg Group, Club of Rome, Royal Institute of International Affairs, and the Trilateral Commission. These are the people unelected that are running our world. They run everything, right? And so Rockefeller himself said, I don't want a world of thinkers. I want a world of workers. And that's what they're creating. So getting into, I showed you that the globe, again, is a prison for your mind. It says, okay, this is all that there is. And when you're born into God's world. You're born at the center of creation. And the government can't make laws against God unless, of course, they convince you that you don't live in God's creation. They put you on a ball, they commoditize you, they give you your birth certificate, they trade you on the stock market, they inject you full of poisons, and they have you believing in this satanic ball system. When I say satanic, the number of 666s in the globe model are unbelievable. But the divine law is the law of God. Common law is the law of the land. Statute law, admiral maritime law is the law of the sea or man's law. In order to convince a man to give up his divine rights, because you can't take them. Your divine rights are given by God. They can't take them, but you have to convince them to give it up. And their common rights, you have to convince them that they're not divinely created into a divine world. So if you live on a ball, you're living in fear. You're afraid of asteroids. You're afraid of global warming. You're afraid of all sorts of stuff. And then you give away your personal freedom to the government. You're like, take care of me, daddy government. And I'm hoping you realize that the governments aren't here for us. They're there for themselves to enrich themselves. And they're hiding all sorts of things like free energy, hiding the creator, hiding your spirituality, hiding more land, hiding more resources, hiding scientific knowledge, hiding what's in Antarctica, and that we're at the center of the creation and we're special. They don't want you to know that your thoughts create your reality. And if you do figure it out, they want your thoughts limited to the ball. Remember Truman and the Truman Show? I want to be an explorer. And the
Yeah,
teacher goes,
yeah.
there's nothing left to explore. Well, that's not true. There's more. There's more beyond the shoreline of Antarctica, in my opinion.
Yeah, and there's something about the South Pole being you have to get permission to
And it
go,
costs you
but there's a
billions of
treaty.
dollars. Right.
Well, I
There's
don't know about that, but
the Antarctic
the
Treaty.
Antarctic Treaty, right?
Yep.
But I do wonder where the cycle of information, who is the gatekeeper of the information? Because it would seem like if you've got people who are, as I've said, dedicate their whole life to studying the universe,
Right.
and the only way, and they may easily come upon the truth, but somehow not, you have what you believe to be true, and you're using whatever means you have to spread the information, but, there isn't a widespread exploration into flat Earth, and nor is there even
Well, you're incorrect
a,
there. There's millions and millions and millions of people. In 4 years ago, they did a survey in Brazil, and over 10 million people don't believe they live on a globe. That was 4 years ago in just Brazil. It is growing.
okay,
It is growing exponentially. In 1959, when they did Project High Jump, highest land, Admiral Byrd came back and said there's more land bigger than the United States on the other side of the pole. Other side of the pole? That would be where Australia and Africa are. That's bigger than the United States that no human has ever seen. And it's like, how can that be on a globe, right? If you and then they started the Antarctic Treaty, and all of the countries in the world eventually signed that treaty. That's weird. We can't agree on anything except that, and everyone has to get the jibby jab in their arm. But they all agree on those things. So what if the world was set up like this? Just what if? I don't know. We don't need to. We can prove the Earth is flat without speculating what's beyond Antarctica. But what if it's set up like this? This is Antarctica, and out here is more land. There's more land out here, right?
yeah.
So if somebody lived on that land, that extraterrestrials from the outer space, right here on flat Earth, right? That makes sense. Outer space is like Narnia. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. I mean, what if this is all that there is? But out here, there's more land, and the controllers live out here. And this is our prison. We think this is the ball, right? If you can't even imagine the abundance of this world of overabundance, then you won't be able to manifest it in your life. If you live on a ball, you're an insignificant speck. You came from pond scum. You evolved. God is either non-existent or diluted or far away, and you're not important. But the truth is, we are important. We are at the center of creation. We have great power, and the government wants to get above you and above God, right? And that's
Yes.
that they can only do that with your permission, and
Oh,
that's why they're always telling us what they're doing, and we're allowing it. Good.
okay, Dave, because now we're on to something that truly fascinates me, and I am aligned with, which is the idea that, yeah, it is in the interests of the people who hold the power to make sure that we are as poorly educated as possible, that we do not think for ourselves, that we get wrapped up in all kinds of other bullshit that is distracting, and they throw
Entertainment.
distraction upon distraction, to the point where we've now willfully turned over all of our liberties to, just forfeit even whatever illusion we might have had, let's say in the United States, other countries too. But let's say in the United States, you had this experiment in democracy, and you could say, well, it wasn't working as a democracy, it wasn't real, it was fake, it wasn't a real democracy. Sure. But we have literally relinquished that power to where we now have no power. There's no power at all. You don't have any. There's no even illusion of democracy. So now this country, like its sister and brother countries, which again are just countries, they're just fabrications of, what the Indians called, what did they call it? Black water on dead wood, where it's just they're just writing on paper to say that this land isn't our land, right? So it's the same idea here. We've now relinquished the freedom to vote, to have whatever leadership all our self-determination. We gave it up. We just didn't want it anymore. We got tired of it. Now we don't have really any, now there's no power within a country construct anymore. So now the question is, okay, what do you do when in fact we're just creatures in the center of creation, which I
I got it.
love.
The answer
Yeah.
is we take our power back. It's the people that don't do anything that are allowing the government to walk all over them. 1984 says that, boot stomping on your face is what you're going to experience, and we're getting to that point.
Yeah,
And there's
yeah.
people that are walking right into that. The truth is, when you wake up to this, you literally unplug and stop feeding them. This is literally an energetic spiritual warfare. They're going after our souls. Now, that's something a lot of people are like, what are you talking about? We live in a soul system. This system was created by the creator for souls to have experiences here on this
Yeah.
realm.
Yeah.
And so, not a soul lure system. That's what NASA's trying to do. They're trying to lure your soul away. There's so much satanic stuff in NASA. This is just, I'm showing a scene from Sesame Street. Fiction, rockets, and globes. They're always giving us clues. That's the beauty of the thing. We're in a game. It's literally a game. And they're always showing us their hand. They're always showing us. And if we're too stupid to see it, that's on us. Right?
So that's the argument. That's your argument about these glitches,
Yes,
they're hints. They're
right,
hints. And that does make sense.
right.
I do believe that. I do believe that because I think
Yeah,
there is, I have watched my share of murder mysteries, right?
sure.
And of course, a lot of it's fiction, but the idea is that someone who's guilty of perpetrating something can't resist showing their hand at some point. They really
Right.
want people
Oh,
to
it goes
uh
deeper. It goes
yeah, they
deeper than
want
that. Yeah.
people to know
Right.
because they're so, and this is where we're at now politically, I think, in our world, not just the United States, so we're just one country in the world where the people have proven themselves so willing to follow that the powers that be are like, well, you don't even deserve a good lie anymore. We're not even going to
Right.
lie
And
to you.
I think we're in
We're
an
going to
intelligence test.
basically,
I think the world is going to split into two worlds. The NPCs that go into the 15-minute cities that they're creating in a total technocratic world, and then the people that have unplugged and said, no, I'm not any part of it. We don't think we need to take down the government. We need to ignore the government and they will just disappear. If everyone
I
woke up
like
to flat
that.
Earth tomorrow, if everyone woke up to flat, all the governments would just instantly dissolve. We wouldn't need to do anything because they have no power. The only power they have is in our imagination. It's like money. Money is in our imagination. Of course, we need money. Luckily, everyone imagines that $100 is worth whatever $100 will get you, and maybe a bag of groceries if you're lucky. And so it's all a belief system, right? Another one, scams, and then the globe, and you got the devil. There's so much stuff, truth. But this is what they want you to think. This is Charles Manson. I'm showing. They want you to believe that's a cult leader, but that's a cult leader. Neil deGrasse Tyson. He is the leader of a cult. We catch him lying all the time. And we show him, he's like, oh, well, the Earth, Eratosthenes figured this out. We show him how he's wrong, and he repeats it again and again and again. We're not theorizing. We show him how he's wrong, right? He's an actor. He's not a physicist. He's nothing. And he has changed his story so many times based on the stuff that we've been exposing, right? For example, do you know about the Georgia Guidestones?
No.
So in Georgia, here in America, there is a monument that it's called the Georgia Guidestones, and it has these pillars, kind of looks like Stonehenge a little bit, and it had 10 commandments on it, and one of them is never let the world population rise over 500 million again. That's weird, but that's a whole nother show. But in the center stone, there was a little tiny hole, and when you look through it, you can see Polaris, which is our North Star, right?
Uh,
You look through it. So they tell us, even though we're corkscrewing through space, traveling 4.5 billion miles a year, never to return to where we were before, Polaris is so far away that in all of history, it hasn't moved because it's so far away. That's like we're moving tiny little bits and it's still there. And then they say, well, our Earth is wobbling, right? Our pole is wobbling. And 2,000 years ago, we had a different North Star. That's why the Egyptian pyramids, which is now closed, there's a hole there that looks at Polaris. And they say, well, when they built it, it was pointing towards Thuban, right? So you can't argue with that because it's just a belief system. However, Georgia Guidestones were built in 1981. The Earth wobbles at 1 degree per 76 years. 1 degree in the sky is 3 full moon widths. It was up for over 40 years, And that would mean 1.5 moon widths. The star should have been out of that hole. It should have been well out of that hole. But we went there. We saw it. It's still there day and night. It's there. So we started making videos. They were going viral. Guess what happened? Boom. A terrorist blew up the Georgia Guidestones. And within 3 hours, bulldozers were there, knocked the entire thing down, stole the time capsule, and there was no investigation, just like on 9/11. Okay? There was no investigation. So this is what's called rock solid proof. And they blew it up right in front of us.
It seems, though, to me, considering all of this and the intricacy of it, that there's a lot of effort being expended to deceive people who are already
Sure.
too stupid to even retain their own self-determination. So these are people who you showed The Simpsons. These are, like if I watch Fox and
Don't do that.
and I become, I succumb to the idiocracy, let's say, and I usually don't get political on the show, but this is really science. We're talking about science. We're not talking about politics. I'm much more subscribed to the center yeah, modern education, creating people smart enough to repeat what they're told and follow orders, and dumb enough to think this makes them smarter than everyone else. That's the poster that the meme that Dave has up now, and that's so totally true because here we are. That's what I'm kind of saying is the gullibility and foolishness of man is so profound that it seems like there isn't really a need for an intricate conspiracy theory. We've already said, let's say in this country, we said, look, we don't care. Just do whatever you want. You want to make a wrestler, the secretary of whatever. It doesn't, nothing matters anymore. So make anybody anything because none of it matters. If we're that detached from any kind of critical thinking, then why is any of it needed? Why is there a charade
Right.
of any
So
kind
here's the
because
thing.
we're going to
If you
get
keep
scared if we
right.
think that there's a barrier to the,
Well, here's the thing. If false evidence appearing real, FEAR, that's the only true thing I've ever heard a president say is the only thing to fear is fear itself. And fear is false evidence appearing real. So when you become a flat earther, you literally lose fear of everything because you realize what this place is and you realize the true power that you have and you realize the creator's got your back and you realize a lot of things. A minute ago, you mentioned the Indians, right? Now, some of that story you told might be true, but did you know that San Francisco was here already before Columbus got here and the Indians said they found it? Right?
the airport too, or just
No, I don't know about the airport. The buildings. Have you looked into the old world yet? This is your homework. On my
okay.
website, flatearthdave.com, right? I have my app there, but if you just go, there's a banner that says Old World Order. It's a 90-minute video. It's the
Yeah.
best. You watch it and it will blow your mind. It'll completely change your mind about understanding what this world is, right? They had buildings like this. There's buildings in every city that were built before motors, before power tools, before any shipping companies, right? They were built with chisel and the story was it was built in 1 year, right? Right? These crazy buildings all over the earth. And
Well, no breaks,
they're
no breaks
everywhere.
for the
They're
workers is
everywhere.
what
And
that's an abuse of the workforce,
well,
probably.
no. You when you see the stories behind this stuff, so I if you search flat Earth, if you say, hey, top 10 reasons that the Earth is flat,
Right.
Google's going to feed you top 10 reasons the Earth is not flat because they're not going to give you what you want, even though it's there. That's why I created the app, the Flat Earth Sun, Moon, and Zodiac Clock app. Every day there's a featured video. And here's my challenge. Watch the featured video while you have your coffee or tea in the morning. And for 2 weeks, at the end of that 2 weeks, if you think that the Earth is a globe, send me a proof and you win 3 Bitcoins. But before you do, you have to click the question mark button, which is the frequently asked question page, which will answer all of your questions. Hey, what about eclipses? Why would they lie? There's videos on here that will blow your mind. Okay. I'll send you one after the show by a girl named Laura Nina out of the UK. who in 10 minutes, she explains why the lie better than I can. All right. And
Okay.
basically, the bottom line is if you play on their ball field, you have to play by their ball field rules. And if you play with their fiat money, you
I
they
thought you were
they
going to say if
they
you
own
play
you.
on their ball field, you have to play with their balls, which is probably also a rule. But that said, I do feel like that the time is right for us to be asking as many existential questions and profound and deep questions as we possibly can because we're not we're not we're not going in a great direction now. So there's no reason to cling to any preconceptions or other ideas. It's not going well. And now someone might say, "Oh, well, it is going well. We just think it's not going well because we're being told by people it's not going well." But if you look at the natural disasters that are happening, unless you believe that those are man-made, like literally man-made, or they're not really happening. I don't know what your
So
thinking is on that, but
without going deep into that, this is going to trigger people. I'm going to say it anyway. On my website, there's a banner that has a nuclear bomb exploding on it. Listen to those podcasts. Don't believe anything. Look at the research, and you'll find out that nuclear bombs. The good news is, and there's bad news to follow it, that nuclear bombs don't exist as explained to us. However,
uh-huh.
there are weapons that are far worse that they do have. I want to show you one more thing. You know what
Yeah.
the vomit comet, the zero G plane is? You go, it
Oh
doesn't
yeah,
matter,
sure.
dark, and you
Yeah.
float. So here's a zero G plane, and here is the space station. Kind of looks a little similar, right? Looks a little similar. Okay, zero gravity could look similar. So there was on the morning news. This was in early 2000s. They said we're gonna be able to talk to the shuttle people. The satellite's only
Yes,
gonna
yeah.
have like 20 seconds, and during it, all of a sudden they all slammed into the wall and they cut away back to the newsroom. They slammed into the wall and they cut away back to the newsroom. And I knew I was very worried and about like, oh, they said, oh, the space station shifted, a sudden shift that they were unaware of
Uh-huh.
or aware of. So then I started looking and I noticed that the guy on the lower part of the screen, I'll come back to it. This is the vomit comet. When it comes out of its arc, everyone falls to the ground. I noticed this guy here, there's a roll of duct tape and something else. He catches it with one hand, like he's done it a million times before. Okay. And so I turned it 90 degrees and I compared it to the end of a zero G flight.
Yeah.
It's exactly the same. They were filming on a zero G flight and something happened to the arc. They had to come out of the arc quicker than expected, and it went out live on the news. They cut away, changed the topic, right? They go, oh, it was an unexpected shift at the space station. Look at this guy, like a boss. He catches that with one hand. If there was an unexpected shift at the space station, he would have
Yeah.
crapped his pants and he wouldn't have caught the duct tape.
And these things we can study, but I think the bigger question, where are we going and why, and where should we be going? And you were right when you told me before, Dave, we could talk for hours and we could, but to wrap this session up and say, okay, let's give the audience something to think about. Where could we be going if we
Yeah,
adopted this
right.
this understanding?
We would live to our full potential. Right now, they tell us we only use 10% of our brain. They want us to only use 10% of our brain. That's nonsense. That
Yeah.
most of our DNA is junk DNA. They don't want us using our DNA. We have the ability to to communicate over great distance telepathically. We have so many things that they've taken away from us, that they've hidden from us, that they've fluoridated out of our brains. They've fluoridated our pineal gland. You don't learn about your pineal gland in school. You don't learn sacred geometry or vortex mathematics. They teach you slave mathematics, accounting, algebra, right? They don't teach you the true things of this world. They don't teach you about the giant trees. They don't teach you about the giants that lived here. They don't teach you that dinosaurs were fake. They tell you that dinosaurs were real to hide giant humans, right? They don't want you to know anything about your history. So where can we go with this? When you unplug from the system, you all of a sudden reconnect with the creator and you can live to your full potential. How do you do it? Now, do it is through knowledge. The thing is, if you want to become rich, Hersh, invent something that makes people lazier. right? Because right now, if you drop the pencil on the floor, you're not going to get up, walk around your chair and pick it up.
Right.
You're going to reach over with your foot. You're going to roll it over. You're going to lean over. You're going to pick it up the easiest way possible. Nothing wrong with that, right? So if you got to cook dinner for your family, you got to go out, you got to shop, you got to come home, you got to cook, you got to prep, you got to cook, you got to serve, you got to clean up, and that's dinner. Or you want to be lazy, just order fast food, right? Just go out and get some fast food and throw everything in the garbage. And you want to be lazier, use DoorDash. So have them deliver it. And if you want to be lazier, leave the door unlocked and have them come and drop it on the table in front of the couch. I mean, these are multi-billion-dollar businesses because people want the easy way to do stuff. So if you want to learn about this, it's not easy. You actually have to take the time and use your God-given common sense. Our brains are atrophied, where we don't learn anything in school other than how to memorize and regurgitate. That's it. They don't allow critical thinking in all public schools, right? There's a couple teachers out there. Every year I go to 2 or 3 different high school classes where I zoom in and I teach them about this stuff. And these are some really teachers that are teaching their kids to critically think. So what I do is I tell people, go to my website. You can get my app, $3 app, if you really want to learn about it. It's amazing. It's got so much stuff on it. It's got a dating site on it, friend finder, meetup maker. It's got all sorts of stuff, tons of resources. But if you don't want to get the app, that's fine. It's on my website. There's a big picture of me. It says crash course. All you got to do is click that, and there's a list of 20, 30 videos that Google is hiding from you. You can search for them by name. They won't come up, right? But you look at these videos and you just go through them one by one. I guarantee you can't get through 3 of them without realizing that you don't live on a globe. It's scientifically impossible. But you can go ahead and believe you live on a globe, not have any proof, live in your globe religion, because that's easier, right? If I told you I lived in Connecticut at the beginning of the show, I normally tell people I live in Connecticut, and I said to you right now, where do I live? And you said Connecticut. I would say, is that a belief or do you know it? Because belief is easy. Takes one, doesn't even take a second. You believe, I got it, done. I'm gonna go smoke a joint, right? But if you want to know something, then you have to go research. You got to look me up. You find me on Facebook, find my friends, look at some pictures, look at the metadata, right? You're like, okay, I figured out where he lives. He lives in Connecticut, right? So knowing takes time and effort. People don't want to do that. But let me tell you, I went to college. I went to corporate America. I did all these things. I rose to the top of 2 different professions. I started my own business, rose to the top, and I walked away from it all to do this. And this is the hardest thing I've ever done. I work 24/7, right? For the last 10 years, I've been doing this all day, every day, all night. I barely sleep, and it's the greatest joy of my life.
Well, well, that's great, because I think that we do spend a tremendous amount of time just being lazy. Like, if you think
Watching
about
movies,
AI,
drinking
we
beer,
could
going to
talk about
sports.
AI, where the idea with AI is to take the one thing that's the hardest and most creative and most richly rewarding and everything else, and get rid of it so we don't have to do it anymore.
That's right.
Right? And people are like, oh no, AI is going to replace us. And it's like, well, of course it's going to replace us. We created it to replace us. We created it so that we couldn't even wait for it to be good before we relinquished control and wanted it to replace us. We were like, oh my God, this is amazing. This is just like a real person. And it's like, no, it isn't. It's completely lame. And they're like, well, yeah, it is lame, but that's good enough. It's like, so I totally am down with that aspect of it. I think if we look at human nature, the answer's in there. Look at what we've done with ourselves and to ourselves just in the last 30 years, because I'm 58. So let's say I've been paying attention more or less for 30 years tops, but I wasn't a very curious kid. I liked to be funny, which meant I liked to kind of escape. So I didn't necessarily love reality, but I loved unreality. I loved fantasy. And I would rather create an entirely fabricated world than study the real world. But as you get older, you start to look at things a little more practically, which can sometimes lead us to question some of the things that we're being told. But not too often, honestly. Clearly we are not a society of inquisitive people. We just aren't, you know.
But once you see the truth of our world, I used to be bored sometimes. Like I got 20 minutes before I go somewhere, I'll stare at the wall or just flip channels on the TV. Now I got 20 minutes. This is amazing. Right now, I get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and start researching. I don't have to talk to anybody for 8 hours, right? Or whatever. And the world is so fascinating. And when you go outside, once you start, you got to watch Old World Order. I'm telling you, watch it.
Yeah.
You'll never be able to walk outside again without going, how did I miss that? I've lived here my whole life. I walk by this every day. How did I miss it? Right? When you start seeing what this world is, every day before I say 7 a.m., I have my mind blown every single day, right? Well, ask some other people, when's the last time you had your mind blown? They're like, I don't know, man, and they just go to work, they come home, they can't wait to watch a movie, they eat crappy food, they go to sports, they drink beer, they pass out, and then I get 2 weeks off in the winter and I can go on vacation, and that's their life. That's not life.
Oh, I agree. Well, Dave, this is awesome. I hope we'll stay in touch and have more conversations like this. And I really appreciate your coming on. FlatEarthDave.com. If you have a chance, if you've been listening to this while you're in what you think is your car driving down what you think is your road, to what you think is your job on the way to what you think is home, but really doesn't have to be, please check this out on YouTube because you'll want to see a lot of the visuals that Dave included. And it's been a delight. And thank you so much for coming on. I hope you'll come on again.
All right, man. Thanks so much. See you soon.
Thanks so much for tuning into Truth Tastes Funny. If you enjoyed the experience, please leave a 5-star review and share this podcast with your friends.